Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order for January 22nd, 2024. Before proceeding to the agenda, I want to recognize that Ottawa is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Host Nation. The people of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation have lived on the territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The Ottawa Police Services Board honors the peoples and land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Today, Ottawa is home to approximately 40,000 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Ottawa's Indigenous community is diverse, representing many Inuit and Métis people. Ottawa's representing many nations, languages, and customs. The Ottawa Police Services Board honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people and their valuable past and present contribution to the land. I also want to advise that we are currently broadcasting on Zoom and live streaming on YouTube. Given this meeting is being held electronically, I want to caution that there is a possibility of technical difficulties. Should we receive any disruptions, I would ask that everyone remain patient as we work to fix the issue and resume the meeting as soon as possible. Prior to this public meeting, we held our in-camera meeting. The board received and discussed the following items: 3 operational matters, 2 labor relations matters, 2 legal matters, and a delay application. I will now proceed with the confirmation of the agenda. It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board confirm the agenda of 22nd January 2024. Is the agenda confirmed?
Confirmed.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes, item 3. This is 3.1, minutes 95 of 18th December 2023. It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board confirm minutes number 95 of 18th December 2023. Are the minutes confirmed?
Confirmed.
Thank you. Item 4, committee meetings. The report from the committee chairs and minutes. 4.1 is the Human Resources Committee, draft minutes number 17th of 14th December 2023. Member Henschel, who is chair of the Human Resources Committee, is away, so I can advise on his behalf that at the last meeting, the committee discussed 2 confidential labor relations matter. So at this time, it is recommended that the Ottawa Police Service Board receive this item for information. Is this item received?
Received.
Received.
Thank you. Number 5 on the agenda is declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to public delegations. We have 2 public delegations registered to speak to us today. When I call your name, you'll be able to turn on your mic and video. Each delegate has up to 5 minutes to address the board. As a reminder, the board has set aside 1 hour as part of its regular meetings to hear delegations from members of the public. Advanced registration is required by noon on the Friday prior to the meeting date. A written copy of the comments that will be presented must be included at the time of registration. Delegations may speak to agenda items or other subject matters that are within the jurisdiction of the board. I will now proceed with the first registered public delegate, Mr. Robin Brown. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Wow. Speaking to you guys 2 months in a row, it's just like old times. Members of the board, the Police Services Act says you are responsible for the provision of adequate and effective police services in Ottawa. So I'd like to share a couple of stories to help members of the public who might be watching this or who might watch it later to decide whether the police services you're currently providing for them are adequate and effective. The first story is about a Black woman who contacted me because she was getting emails from a Black man that started out harassing and had recently turned violent. I counseled her, reluctantly, to involve the police since there are still no other options, but she agreed. But like me, she wanted to make sure that the man stopped the harassment, but also that he got the help he clearly needed instead of ending up dead like other Black men experiencing mental health crises had, like Abdirahman Abdi, for example. We decided to reach out to a Black officer through an OPS contact I had. I called the Black officer and explained the situation. When I told him our concerns about the man getting help but not getting killed by the OPS, the officer said, "Are you calling to get help for this guy or to criticize the Ottawa Police Service?" The conversation ended with the officer asking me to get the woman to call him, which I did. She called him and he asked her to send him the man's emails, which she did. On January 2nd, she sent him hundreds of emails she had gotten from the man. Then, nothing happened. She got no response that day, or the next, or the next, or the next. After a week with no response, I suggested that I email the officer and tell him I plan to tell the story of the OPS response to her request for help at this meeting. The officer replied to her the next day. The officer told her that all he could do at that point was to contact the man and ask him to stop emailing her, or the OPS could charge him. He emailed the man, and last I heard, the man had stopped emailing her. The second incident happened when I was at the South Keys Loblaws about a week ago, and there was a woman with a sign asking for money outside. She looked about in her 40s and maybe Eastern European. I gave her some money on my way out, and when I got to my car, I looked back and an unmarked police car was stopped near her, and a young male officer was talking to her. 2 more police cars then pulled up. I then noticed a guy standing close to the woman and the officer just watching them. So I went back over and stood next to the guy and said, "Hey, what's up?" To which he replied, "Hi." The female officer who arrived second asked me if I was the woman's friend, and I smiled and said, "No, just an interested member of the public." And then I then asked the bystander if he was her friend, and he said, "No, I'm with them," indicating the cops. Turns out he was on a ride-along because he wants to become a cop to, quote, help immigrants. I asked the aspiring cop if the other cops had told him what law, if any, the woman had broken, and he said they hadn't, but he thought panhandling was illegal. When I left after about 45 minutes, the cops had let the woman go, and she was walking away. So these 2 incidents raise some questions, which I will now pose, rhetorically, of course, because seeing as we're not allowed to ask questions of you board members. Regarding the first incident, is it adequate and effective for an officer to take a week to get back to a woman who has filed a police report about receiving threatening emails from a man? Will such a response encourage other women in similar circumstances to contact the police? Does such a response contribute to reducing violence against women? Does having Black officers make the OPS more responsive to Black people, especially Black women, as advocates of more diversity in policing would have us believe? Regarding the second incident, why did the OPS require 3 cars to respond to one woman asking for money outside a grocery store? Seeing as the OPS justifies programs like its neighborhood resource teams partly by saying its officers connect people to resources, did they connect her to any, and if so, which ones? And finally, does the wannabe cop still want to be a cop after seeing how much help the police provided this immigrant? Also, in addition to these stories, is it adequate and effective when police receive 911 calls about a man with a knife having a mental health crisis and respond by shooting and killing the man 3 minutes after they arrive on the scene like they did last June? Is it adequate and effective that an officer convicted of assaulting a man having a mental health crisis by hitting him twice with his baton and stepping on his neck for over 2 minutes gets a suspended sentence and probation but no jail time? And finally, is it adequate and effective that the OPS's own data shows they continue to use force disproportionately on Black and Middle Eastern residents, and that the OPS hasn't presented a plan to stop doing that, mainly because you haven't asked them for one? It's time to start reimagining community safety by shifting money away from policing to things that actually respect people's human rights and keep us all safer. Thank you.
Are there any questions from board members for Mr. Brown? Seeing no questions, I want to thank you, Mr. Brown, for your delegation this month. As a follow-up to this the delegates' comments, I would like to note that this evening's agenda includes an update on the 2023-25 Diversity, Respect, Inclusion, Values, Equity, and Engagement Strategy, also referred to as the Drive To strategy. The strategy was presented publicly and approved by the board in April of last year, and includes specific action items related to the use of force, race-based data, including the creation of a community review panel to improve the use of force procedures and training, as well as development of race data strategy to ultimately help improve disproportionalities. I would encourage any member of the public interested in better understanding the measures being taken as part of the 3-year Drive To strategy to review the full report. I would also note, for the benefit of the public, that all incidents involving OPS officers where there is a serious injury, death, allegation of sexual assault, or discharge of a firearm by an officer at a person are investigated by the Special Investigations Unit, or SIU. The SIU determines whether there is evidence of criminal wrongdoing on the part of the officer, and the reports of the SIU director are publicly available on their website and include details on their investigation. We'll now go to the next public delegation, Councillor David Hill.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hill. Please go ahead.
Perfect. So good day, Chair, Board, and Chief Stubbs. Thank you again for the opportunity to delegate on behalf of Barrhaven West residents. Today I'll be speaking to you about an issue that's becoming far too prevalent in my community, and that's vehicle thefts. From January to November of last year, 262 vehicles were stolen in Barrhaven. Over that same period of time, more than 1,200 cars were stolen from across the city. That's 3 cars a day, and it's an exponential increase. I understand that there are numerous complicating factors impacting this problem, from policing to border services to port operations to industry modifications to criminal exploitation of the gaps in between. This is exacerbated by the jurisdictional challenges between the federal government, Ontario, Ottawa, and Quebec, especially when looking at the major offshore port of Montreal. We will also need to ensure that we have the support of our automotive industry and insurance sector for a lasting solution to this problem. If Ottawa's voice is going to be heard by either the auto industry or upper levels of government, we will need to be ambitious in building an aligned coalition. Ensuring our inclusion in the Preventing Auto Thefts grant is an important first step that I know the Chief is working on with our provincial counterparts. Also, advocating that the province adopts a vehicle identification number assignment program similar to Alberta and Saskatchewan could be another worthy effort. As much as this issue requires the City of Ottawa to grapple with bigger forces and outside trends, I believe there is more that we can be doing as a municipality to meet this challenge. To that end, I have several questions that I hope can either be addressed at this meeting or in future collaborations. 1, does the OPS currently have a dedicated vehicle theft unit? 2, if not, have they had one in the past, and could it be resurrected? 3, has the province addressed resource requirements for Ottawa to address anti-vehicle theft actions? And 4, how has OPS engaged with public safety to ensure that we're seeing the required federal support from the RCMP, Provincial International Partner Liaison, CBSA, and especially at the prominent offshoring sites such as the Montreal port? The impact of rising crime is not restricted to the immediate victims. We're already seeing insurance rates increase across Canada as a result of the billion-dollar vehicle theft criminal industry. It is unacceptable. Continued theft will simply compound the cost of living crisis as insurance soars. We all need to row stronger together on this issue. So what can we do as a city right now? Well, you won't be surprised to hear me say this, but one important step is to reverse the draining of police resources from our suburbs to respond to federal issues. Ottawa is a unique city given that we host the federal government. We need a special relationship regarding security operations. Simply put, federal issues need to be managed by federal resources, and the impact of OPS stepping up consistently to provide security support, that is, suburban traffic and beat cops getting retasked away from us. Barrhaven, Canada, and Orleans, we're the ones that are being left behind because of this jurisdictional gap, and the federal government need to take ownership of this issue. This isn't limited to just car thefts. Speeding and stunt racing remain both a nightly nuisance and a risk to local safety. I've met now with several families who've had loved ones, in most cases children, hit by cars. This trend needs to change, and a component of this change requires additional police presence. I will continue to advocate to this committee, to the province, to our local parliamentarians, as well as the auto insurance industries in order to get this sorted out. I fully realize the pressures on Ottawa's police force, and I'm very appreciative of the challenging work that they undertake day in and day out. I'd also like to take a moment to voice my support for the Special Constable pilot program that's in front of you today. At first blush, this is exactly the kind of outside-the-box proposals that I think we need to get results for our residents. I look forward to seeing how this pilot unfolds. Thank you very much for taking the time to hear my delegation today, and I look forward to working with you in order to improve the situation with both vehicle thefts in Barrhaven and the lack of police presence in the suburbs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Board members, any questions or comments for the delegate? I see the chief has his hand up, but before we go to the chief, any board members? Okay, we'll go to the chief, and then if board members have questions, we'll come back to them.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Hill, for your delegation. And I know a couple of weeks ago, you and I were supposed to meet to discuss this issue, and unfortunately, it had to get canceled. I do see it rescheduled this week for discussion on this issue, and I'm sure a few other topics. I know you had some questions in your delegation, and certainly we can attempt to answer them today, or we can answer them during our meeting. But I know Deputy Ferguson, her team is dealing with the auto theft and the investigation of it. Deputy Burnett's team certainly deals with the proactive patrols that have been done by the front line and have successfully recovered a number of vehicles. But I might just go to Deputy Ferguson to talk briefly on a few of the topics that you rose.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Councillor Hill, for the delegation. I put together a few answers just in response to the questions that you've asked, and hopefully we'll be able to shed some light. The first question about whether we have a dedicated vehicle theft unit. At this point in time, we do not have a vehicle theft unit or members who are specifically dedicated to that. Our unit was disbanded in 2017, and that was as a response of the high number of shootings, and we needed to reallocate officers. Around that time, the provincial task forces and things had also disbanded due to a decrease in organized auto thefts. At that time and now, auto thefts are actually investigated by our general assignment officers. But in response to the growing trend that we've seen this year, Ottawa Police put together a task force at the beginning of this year for the first 6 months, and a project called Project Phoenix, which we put out the results of, and you can find those on our website. But 68 vehicles were recovered, and it just highlighted for us just how big this issue is, which we were already aware of. And however, we continue to access right now and promote training for our frontline officers so that that information is out there on the roads in terms of what to look for and some of the points of interest that they need to be aware of. And I would say probably several times a week, our frontline officers are intercepting cars that are in the process of being stolen or preventing them from being taken from people's driveways. We haven't continued to proactively provide prevention training to the Ottawa New Car Dealers Association as well. That's in conjunction with some of the subject matter experts that we have here at the Ottawa Police. We're blessed with a number of members who are very well versed in this, and I know that Councillor Hill, you met 2 such members several weeks ago. And while we don't have a unit per se, we happen to have 5 members who have superior skills and knowledge and who have been subject matter experts, in fact, across the country on this. With regards to your second question about have we resurrected one, every year since the disbandment in 2017, we've done smaller 3-month projects, to try and disrupt the criminal organizations. Obviously, it has expanded in its complexity now. And so these projects are somewhat effective, but clearly not in dismantling the organization. We also continue to update the public with education campaigns and media releases on how to prevent car theft themselves and some of the new trends that are emerging. With the increase in profitability and organized auto theft, the province is reforming the provincial auto theft units, and OPS will contribute 2 officers to the Eastern Hub. So that should be coming in the next couple of weeks. This will be helpful in tackling the organized crime groups traveling along the province stealing vehicles. And a local team would be the best option that focuses on auto theft only, but with the current staffing levels and forming that team will mean that we are pulling resources from somewhere else, and that's something we struggle with. Your third question about the province addressing resources requirements for Ottawa to address any anti-theft vehicle actions. The Solicitor General made a call for grant applications at the end of 2023, and though we were not successful in the auto theft grant, we do get provincial money from other projects, and we will be diverting some of the Safe Roads grants to offset the cost for an intelligence constable. And that person will be coordinating with the provincial team and feed information to the frontline officers as well as education for the public. And we anticipate this is a key strategic position that will not only improve our ability to identify and go after some of the bigger players, we also believe that this position will be a point of contact for other agencies, industry partners, and will be the subject matter expert for the Ottawa Police Service. And finally, for your fourth question, how is OPS engaged with public safety to ensure that we are seeing the required federal support from the RCMP, Provincial International Partner Liaison, CBSA, and especially the prominent offshore sites, this is Port of Montreal. We work very closely with our Quebec partners as well. OPS has had a seconded officer from the Canada Border Services Agency for a number of years, and that has proved to be a key position for streamlining information between our agencies. We also sit at many tables with provincial partners to encourage investment in technology and at the ports that would assist in the search of containers without slowing down the trade. And finally, of note, we have 2 regional directors in the Northeast chapter of the International Association of Auto Theft Investigators, or an organization called IATI. You may have seen over the weekend that the federal government has launched a summit that should be coming February 8th. I believe it's occurring, and we have indicated our interest absolutely to attend and to work with our federal partners in that regard. I hope I've answered your question, sir.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Ferguson. Any board members have any comments or concerns to? If not, I would like to thank Councillor Hill for his delegation. It's always important for us as a board to hear from the various councillors and bring the issues that are in your area. So thank you again, Councillor Hill, for your delegation today. Much appreciated. We'll move now on to inquiries. Item 7 on our agenda. Are there any inquiries? Seeing none, we're going to go on to items of business. We're going to hold the chair's verbal report. We will hold the chief's verbal report. And then 8.3, we have a presentation. So those 3 items will be held. We'll go to 8.4. Attendance at the Community Safety and Policing Act Summit. Does anyone want to, would any board members want to hold this item?
No.
Okay, if not, I am going to read the recommendation that the Ottawa Police Service Board approve the in-person attendance of S. Faccarani and K. Ferraro at the Community Safety and Policing Act Summit being held in Toronto from February 27th, 28th, 2024, as well as the virtual attendance of Member Carr and Member Curry. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Thank you. 8.5, Ontario Association of Police Services Board 2024 membership renewal. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
I will read the recommendation that the Ottawa Police Service Board approve payment of $7,341.52, including HST, to the Ontario Association of Police Services Board for its 2024 membership fee. Is this item carried?
Carried. Carried.
Thank you. 8.6, Canadian Association of Police Governance 2024 membership renewal. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
The recommendation is that the Ottawa Police Service Board approve payment of $7,998.08 HST exempt to the Canadian Association of Police Governance for its 2024 membership fee. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Thank you. Thank you. 8.7 Ottawa Police Service Board Work Plan 2024. Would any board members like to hold this item?
Yes.
Could you
I
hold
see
that?
member Cart. 8.8 Special Constable Appointments, OPS and RCMP. This item is before the board for ratification following pre-approval on December 19th, 2023 by electronic polling. The appointment forms are on file with the executive director. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
Okay, the recommendation is that the Ottawa Police Services Board, number 1, approve the appointment of 3 RCMP employees listed in the attached forms as special constables pursuant to Section 53 of the Police Services Act in accordance with the terms and conditions set forth in the attached approval of appointment form. And number 2, approve the appointment of 9 OPS employees listed in the attached forms as special constables pursuant to Section 53 of the Police Services Act in accordance with the terms and conditions set forth in the attached approval of appointment form. Is this item carried?
Carried.
8.9, updating justification for the Ottawa Police Service Special Constables District Special Constable Pilot Project. Would any board members like to hold this item?
Yes.
8.10 Community Safety and Policing Act. Would any board members like to hold this item?
Yes.
8.11 2023-2025 Drive 2 Diversity, Respect, Inclusion, Values, Equity, and Engagement Strategy Update. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No, but thanks for the update.
Okay, so the recommendation that the Ottawa Police Board receive this item for information. Is this received?
Received.
8.12 Annual Use of Force Report 2022. Would any board members like to hold this item?
Yes.
Yeah.
8.13 Application for Secondary Activities. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
No, and I don't want to hold any of the rest of these in a row.
I have one I'd like to hold.
So let's just go through them one by one. Sorry, Kath. I know we have a lot, but we're gonna have to read out the items anyways, right? So for the application for secondary items, the recommendation is that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this item for information. Is the item received?
Received.
8.14 Appointments made under the Interprovincial Policing Act 2023 Annual Report. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
No.
It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Service Board receive this item for information. Is this item received?
Received.
Thank you. Collection of Identifying Information Duties and Prohibitions Policy Annual Report. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
No.
It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Service Board receive this item for information. Is it received?
Yes.
Yes, received.
Thank you. 8.16 Equitable Work Environment Annual Report. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this item for information. Is the item received?
Received.
On that one, I would just have one comment. I don't want to hold it, but it's just to see as we move forward an improved member complaint process. I think that's part of that report. I'm going to move on to 8.17 OPSB CR-6 Public Consultation Policy Annual Report. Would any board member like to hold this item?
I have one question, so if we could just maybe hold it, sorry, Member Curry.
Okay, 818, Ottawa Police Service Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act Status Report. Would any members like to hold this item?
Yeah, I have one question on that, sorry, Member Curry. We can just hold it.
Okay, 819, Public Rewards 2023 Annual Report. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
Okay, it is recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this item for information. Is it received?
Received.
820, Report on Special Investigations Unit Investigation 23 OCI 279. Any board members like to hold this item?
No.
It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this item for information. Is it received?
Received.
821, Report on Special Investigations Unit Investigation 23 OFP 075. Any board members like to hold this item?
No.
It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this item for information. Is the item received?
Received.
Thank you. 822, Report on Special Investigation Unit Investigation 23 OFP 303. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
Thank you. It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Service Board receive this item for information. Is the item received?
Received.
Thank you. 8.23, CR 16 Human Rights and Racial Profiling Policy Annual Report. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Service Board receive this item for information. Is the item received?
Received.
Response to inquiry I-23-01, roles and responsibilities regarding business plan development. Would any board members like to hold this item?
It's in response to an inquiry that I put in, so I would like to hold it, but it's just a quick note of clarification. Thank you.
Okay. 825, schedule of conferences and CAPG webinars in 2024. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
No.
It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Service Board receive this item for information. Is it received?
Received.
Received.
8.26, Board Activity and Training and Performance 2023 Annual Report. Would any board members like to hold this item?
No.
If not, it is recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board, 1, receive this report for information, and 2, direct the Executive Director to forward it to City Council for information. Is the item received and carried?
Received and carried.
Thank you. 8.27, Calendar of Board Monitoring Requirements 2024. Would the board like to hold this?
No.
No.
Okay, it is recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive the 2024 Calendar of Monitoring Requirements for information. Is the item received?
Received.
You 8.28, Outstanding Board Inquiries and Motions, January 2024. Would the board like to hold this item?
No.
It is recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this report for information. Is the item received?
Received.
Received.
Thank you. And it's letters of commendation. Chief will hold this as per our usual practice. So we'll go now to the chair's report, 8.1, which was held. So I just want to start with providing some information about board activities. And first, I'll start with the Senior Policy Advisor posting. I just want to advise that last week, the board launched its recruitment for a Senior Policy Advisor. This position is part of an overall staffing plan approved by the board last year to ensure that the board has the resources and skill sets it needs to carry out responsibilities. The job posting is available through the City of Ottawa job site, and applications will close on January 30th. I would encourage those interested with the required qualifications to apply. Secondly, I want to highlight the Community Safety and Policing Act. Just before the holiday break, the Ministry of the Solicitor General confirmed the coming into force date of the Community Safety and Policing Act, which will replace the Police Services Act. This act will be coming into force on April 1st, 2024, and police boards and services across the province are expected to be in compliance by the enforced date. Some of the regulations are yet to be released. There is a report on this evening's agenda speaking to some of the changes and the implementation plan for the change. The board and the public can expect monthly reports on this topic going forward as we approach April and likely beyond. Board vacancy. As referenced earlier, the citizen member position on the board is currently vacant. The appointment for this position is the responsibility of the City Council, and the city is currently leading the recruitment process. The deadline for application has been extended to February 2nd. More information about the recruitment can be found on the city's website, and we encourage all qualified candidates to apply. The OPS support to the RCMP investigation. I want to take the opportunity to highlight that back in December, the RCMP announced a charge in Ottawa youth with terrorism offenses. While the RCMP led the investigation, Ottawa police helped and supported it. And on behalf of the board, I want to thank all involved for their work on this very difficult file. This type of partnership and collaboration among police services is really important for ensuring community safety. The ongoing protests and demonstrations, I want to take time to acknowledge the ongoing high volume of demonstrations taking place in our city. Chief, I appreciate the way the service continues to keep the board and city council regularly updated, as well as the professional manner in which the OPS members are ensuring the safety of all involved. The board understands the strain the increased frequency of demonstrations is placing on the service operations, particularly the front line. We appreciate the ongoing efforts taking place to secure more federal funding, as well as the service's staffing strategy that will help to provide OPS with the resources it needs to ensure its adequate and effective policing mandate continues to be met. Community engagement. Let me speak a little bit about community engagement. Since taking on the role of acting chair, I've had the opportunity to meet with a number of stakeholders on behalf of the board. On January 15th, I had the opportunity to participate in a roundtable involving the Solicitor General and multiple diverse stakeholders regarding the need to build dialogue in our communities to ensure that they can remain strong and united in the face of the challenges currently faced locally and around the world. That same day, the province announced funding available to community-based not-for-profit organizations and First Nation band councils that partner with local police service and other organizations to help address the causes of hate crime. The grant is called Safer and Vital Communities Grant, and more information can be found on the Ontario government website. On January 16th, I attended a meeting of the Community Equity Council. A range of topics were discussed, including an update on the Drive-To strategy, as well as the body camera pilot the service is looking to launch. The Community Equity Council continues to be a tremendous source of valuable community input and expertise, and look forward to future participation in such meetings. And lastly, I had the opportunity to meet with the leader from the Somali community, from the Somali Center for Family Services, Mr. Abdirazak Karad. We will continue to build relations with various community organizations as we move forward this year. Subject to any questions, I will read the recommendation. Are there any questions to the chair's report? If not, it is recommended that the Ottawa Police Service Board receive this report for information. Is the item received?
Received.
Thank you. We will now move to the chief's verbal report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I would like to thank both Chair Fakareni and Vice Chair Carr for stepping forward to offer your leadership to the board and to the Ottawa Police Service. I look forward to working with both of you in 2024, and I know based on our work in the last year that together we'll advance many of the important issues that we need to navigate during the year. Over the Christmas season, a tragic incident took place on the Rideau River. 2 youths lost their lives when they fell through the thin ice on the river. Our deepest condolences go to the families for the loss of the 2 young lives involved. Our hearts go out to those who are grappling with this unimaginable loss. I do want to extend our sincere appreciation to the first responders that responded to this call for service, in particular the dedicated members of the Ottawa Police Service Marine Dive Team who worked tirelessly and courageously during the extensive search effort. Underwater recoveries are inherently dangerous, and it's even more difficult in those frigid temperatures. The scene that they encountered was extremely challenging, and their commitment to the task at hand did not go unnoticed. I want to address the continuing issue of gun violence in our city and point out some of the great work by our team in removing illegal firearms from our streets and those people that are carrying them. Je souhaite aborder le problème persistant de la violence armée dans notre ville et souligner l'excellent travail accompli par notre équipe pour retirer les armes à feu illégales dans nos rues et des personnes qui les portent. Last week at Cumberland and Murray, a neighborhood resource officer initiated a traffic stop. A search of the vehicle was conducted and officers discovered a concealed firearm. The driver was charged by the Guns and Gang Unit. In another traffic stop on McCarthy Road, another arrest of a driver and the recovery of a loaded firearm and drugs in the vehicle. Recently, near Bank and Heron, officers were faced with a fleeing driver. Both the driver and passenger were found in possession of a loaded firearm. A routine patrol in Orleans on a Sunday afternoon led to the discovery of a stolen vehicle. A subsequent search uncovered 2 loaded handguns. I'm real pleased with this proactive nature of these examples that resulted in the seizures and charges and emphasizes our commitment to tackling firearm-related offenses in Ottawa. Je suis très satisfait de la nature proactive de ces exemples qui ont abouti à des saisies et à des charges et qui sont liés notre engagement à lutter contre les infractions liées aux armes à feu à Ottawa. We continue to encourage the reporting of hate crimes. In 2024, we saw 460 hate crime incidents reported, which is nearly a 20% increase from the year before. All cases are treated seriously and fully investigated. As Chair Fakareni mentioned, last week, Mayor Sutcliffe and I joined the Solicitor General for an announcement on the rise of hate incidents in our city and the launch of a provincial grant initiative. La semaine dernière, le maire Sutcliffe et moi-même, nous sommes joints au Soliciteur Général pour annoncer le lancement d'une initiative provinciale de subvention. The Ontario government has committed over $1.7 million to tackle hate-motivated crimes across the province. This commitment will be delivered through the Safer and Vital Communities Grant Program over the next 2 years. The initiative is a crucial part of the province's broader plan to foster safe and inclusive communities. One of the items on today's agenda is a briefing for the new Community Safety and Policing Act. The legislation introduces 30 proposed regulations that extend to municipal police services, with final versions expected by April 1st, 2024. The CSPA is set to replace the current Police Service Act, offering transition periods to facilitate compliance with updated provisions. This will involve mandatory training and equipment obligations. A few of the changes included updated requirement for the police service delivery and training, the establishment of the Inspector General of Policing, replacing the OIPRD with a new agency called LECA, alterations to the police discipline and complaint process, changes to labor relations, new equipment for officers, and requirements for the police service boards. We are taking this change in legislation seriously. Acting Superintendent Nancy Murray will lead the implementation for the Ottawa Police Service. The primary objective is to shift the way we provide police service to align with the CSPA requirements. This is a significant legislative change that has been needed for years, and we look forward to working with the board on this important initiative. Last year, I went to the community of Kitigan-Zibi, located outside of Maniwaki. I was there to meet with the Grand Chief, elected chief, elders, and other community leaders. This was to establish a relationship with them, given that the Ottawa Police Service work and live on their traditional territory. I have what is called a Chief's Challenge coin. The old coin that I had has the crest of the OPS on one side and my rank, or what's on my shoulders, the epaulets and the crown, on the other side. At our meeting with the community last year, I showed the Algonquin leaders the old coin, but I wanted to work with a local artist that would create a coin that included and acknowledged the Algonquin nation. I committed to creating the coin and returning to the community to show it to them. After that, I worked with local artist Jay Ojic to design the coin, and last Tuesday, I returned to the community and we had a ceremony at the local high school, and I was able to present the coin to the Grand Chief, their elected chief, and 13 other community leaders. It was an incredible event, and I can't say enough about the people of Kitigan-Zibi, how generous they are and willing to work with police. Certainly one of the highlights in my first year on the job. As we usually end my verbal report, I would like to highlight an incident that underscores the dedication of our officers. Recently, an off-duty officer willingly assisted an on-duty colleague with an elderly woman requiring urgent help. On December 10th, officers responded to a call from paramedics about a woman who was walking down the street who appeared lost and confused. They located an 86-year-old woman who was later found to be in the early stages of dementia. She was not dressed for the cold weather, did not appear to know where she was, and only spoke Cantonese. They were unable to positively identify her and where she lived. Constable Trubinsky comforted her while a kind community member provided warmth with a chair, blanket, and tea. Facing language barriers with this woman, Sergeant Walker attempted to locate a Cantonese-speaking officer, but there wasn't anyone working at the time. Knowing that Sergeant Evan Hung spoke Cantonese and could quickly assist the woman, Sergeant Walker made a phone call to him, who, though off duty, was gladly willing to assist and came to the scene. Officers used the information they obtained to narrow down the search and identity of the woman. With paramedics still on scene, they assessed her and brought her to the hospital. Officers then visited her home where they met with her husband. Sergeant Hung ensured her husband was informed about the situation and her whereabouts. Thanks to this rapid response and collaboration, tragedy was averted and the woman was safely reunited with her family. Kudos to our officers and the Ottawa paramedics for their quick thinking and dedication to the community safety and well-being. I've gotten to know Sergeant Hung during this past year. His actions on this file during his time off, I'm not surprised a bit that he did this. Thanks, Evan. That concludes my verbal report, Chair. Back to you with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from board members? If no questions, Chief, I just want to thank you for the your verbal update. And I know there's a lot of things on your plate right now, so really appreciate all the work that the service is doing. Sorry, we will now move on to 8.3 of the agenda, which is the Algonquin College Police Foundation Program presentation. At this time, I would like to introduce Professor Jill Reeves to come online. Good afternoon, Professor Reeves.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. So you may share your screen at any time to provide your presentation to the board, and then we can go to questions from the board.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I apologize for my awkwardness. I was really great at this about 2 years ago. Okay, here we are. Perfect. I hope that's looking clear enough for everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm delighted to have an opportunity to talk about the Police Foundations program at Algonquin College. Thank you especially to Councillor Curry for making arrangements following a visit to my class for me to be here today. The Police Foundations program won't be a program that I don't think is new to the Ottawa Police Services Board. We, of course, share space at Algonquin College with Ottawa Police. We are so fortunate to have some members teach in our program. And certainly we have some of our graduates who are serving with Ottawa Police right now, one of whom is Andrew O'Neill. And I would like to present a video that Andrew helped us do while he was a serving member of the Anishinaabe Police Service. To my understanding, Andrew is now a new recruit to Ottawa Police Service. So if you will bear with me, I will see if I can launch this video. Right. Please tell me if the sound is not where it should be.
My name is Andrew O'Neill. I'm a graduate of the Police Foundations program at Algonquin College. I am a police officer with the Anishinaabe Police Service, and I work at the Pickle Lake Detachment. I believe that Police Foundations at Algonquin College really does a great job to prepare you for career policing by teaching you about Canadian law, your police powers. It also gives you a great wide range of experience from instructors who are, a lot of them are experienced police officers. In addition, I believe that the fitness aspect at Police Foundations is great for preparing you for career policing and also for the Ontario Police College. I had a great time at Police Foundations. I met a lot of great friends that I still talk to today. A few of them are police officers. It's great to build the connections with them, along with building connections with your instructors, a lot of whom are police officers, current serving or retired, and they have a great wealth of knowledge. I believe that the instructors do a great job here at Algonquin College at preparing you for the police college and for policing. I really like helping people. We did a lot of community service, got me into capital city cleanup. It really got me into volunteering here in Ottawa, and then further as a police officer on the job doing community service events. Through the program, we did a lot of scenarios, different classes, things that really helped me prepare for things like crown briefs, investigations. Those are really crucial skills that I learned through Algonquin College that helped me on the job as a police officer.
Very good, thank you. I'll just return to my presentation. The Police Foundations program is a program that is academic, and our students emerge with a college diploma and embark on a variety of directions. Key to our success, I think, in preparing students for hire in areas of law enforcement is the balance that we strike between social science courses and what you might expect to see in the Police Foundations program. This curriculum is designed based on input that we have from our Program Advisory Council, which is a group that includes members of the Ottawa Police, and as well our participation in the Ontario Justice and Public Safety Coordinators Group, which is my counterparts at Police Foundations type programs in colleges across Ontario, and as well the information gleaned from our attendance at the Ottawa Police Service Human Rights Learning Forum. Not to mention just being citizens in the city of Ottawa and being informed by the news items that we take in as well, in trying to determine, just as you do, what the public is looking for in modern police service. So of course we have all of the ologies: sociology, psychology, criminology, and so on. We have an emphasis on communications and communication strategies that include things like conflict management and building relationships, group dynamics, all that kind of thing. Mental health, diversity, community service, of course, and victimology is a relatively new addition to our program. In addition, we have fitness. We teach it every semester. We offer testing so that our students are prepared should they apply to a law enforcement agency and have that experience and know what to expect. Naturally, there are courses that involve legislation, the Criminal Code, the Police Services Act, the Highway Traffic Act. Certainly, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is woven throughout our program. But as well, other skill building courses like interviewing, investigations, community policing, career preparation as well. And so though our students are coming into the program because they want to serve their communities, and though not all of them will undertake to become a member of a police agency moving forward, they may embark in all of the other areas that could include special constable, bylaw services. We have quite a few students who do the summer bylaw program. It could be CBSA, it could be corrections, it could be inspection within government, and so on. And then others will go and embark on postgraduate programs, perhaps in some of the ologies or criminal justice or law, and so on. So, you know, our program is really well-rounded. We do our very best to try to put our students in a competitive position for hire so that they are well prepared and that they know what they may be getting into should they decide to serve their communities through a policing service like Ottawa Police. And as I mentioned, we're so fortunate to have many police members coming and sharing their knowledge, their stories and expertise with our students. Our students love to have that engagement, for sure. Some of the things that our students do in addition to just being in the classroom are a lot of community service work. This is a really big part of our program, engagement with the community. We have a long partnership with a lot of community-based organizations, like settlement organizations, like Helping with Furniture. On any given weekend in the city of Ottawa, we might have 100 or more students volunteering in parades to assist with crowd control. Other types of agencies like the Ottawa Mission, the Shepherds of Good Hope, Ottawa Victim Services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they do great work in our community, and they gain a lot of very valuable skills, regardless where they may be going upon graduation, with their interactions with our members of our community. We have some professional partnerships that we are fortunate to have. We regularly have students volunteer to support training of RCMP officers through scenario training, large crowd control type simulations. We have those happening about twice a semester. In addition, this past summer, we were very fortunate to be asked to come up with staff to work at the Ontario Provincial Police-led Indigenous Youth Camp in Manotick. And we had 5 fantastic students selected to work with Indigenous youth and other members of law enforcement who took part in that program. And they did a fantastic job, and they had an amazing experience with the kids who attended the camp, and then certainly with the Indigenous leadership, and as well the professionals whom they got to interact with. We take part in things like, we have taken part in the Polar Plunge at times, which of course takes place at Algonquin College, Kiwanis Bed Race, our team actually won around this time last year at Winterlude and so on. Other program highlights that take place, I've already mentioned, we've got lots of faculty with career experience. We have a solid commitment to theory and practice and striking that balance that we think is very important. We have a diverse and safe environment for learners. The environment at Algonquin College as a whole has changed, even in my 10-year time teaching there, to be more inclusive. It's a very important part of our mandate as faculty, but as well, the dynamic in the class has changed dramatically. And I think, I see that same change when we look at the population as a whole and how our population is evolving, but as well, the population of police services like Ottawa Police. Everybody is in the class. I have students coming in who are mature students. I have more international students. I have more students who are more comfortable sharing their identity in the classroom. I have more Indigenous students. I have some coming into the program because they have credentials elsewhere. They know that law enforcement is a growth area, lots of hiring going on in all sorts of areas. And so they're coming as mature students into the class as well. Some students with learning challenges, more female identified students than I certainly began with. We're at about a third ratio within the classroom. And so it's fantastic. And everybody learns from everybody else. And they are, even though it's instructive, we have a diversity course in level 4 in our program. Valuing of diversity of other people and their experiences is happening naturally in the classroom every day. The program is flexible, as are many programs at the college. We have a January intake that just started, one class, and then in September we have our traditional intake, but as well, the program is offered through AC Online, and so we can offer students that opportunity to take courses both online and on campus to suit their schedules, especially as we find students are coming in and working more than they have been before. Community engagement as well. I mentioned our Program Advisory Council. That's a very important source of information for us in terms of designing a program that meets the needs of a service like Ottawa Police. The provincial group that I am on the executive of is a really important liaison as well, because some of the Police Foundation's programs can be different across the province, depending on what their needs are in the immediate community. But nevertheless, what I hear are commonalities of what we understand to be really important from recruiting agencies who visit us and are in contact with us, is that you're looking for candidates who are very good at communication, very good at group dynamics, have self-reflection skills, critical thinking skills, develop empathy, understand what community service means, value diversity and really understanding what that means, and as well, most certainly, are paying attention to their physical and good mental health. And these are things that we have heard through all of the avenues of information that we have. And our program is designed to respond to that, so that when we have graduates and those graduates become recruits, that they are in the best position they can be in to be successful officers. Of course, it all comes down to, what's most important to us always is our students. We learn so much from them as well, from their perspectives and so on. And the diversity of what they offer us from a learning standpoint is fantastic too. They come into the program with their hearts in the right place. They are dedicated and kind people that do want to do the best that they can for their communities wherever they are from. I feel that, through their growth period, certainly over our 2 years, that they have a confident understanding of what modern policing is, and they're anxious to play their part for sure. I certainly would welcome the occasion should any board members or certainly members of the Ottawa Police Service, yourself, Chief Stubbs, if you would like to come and visit our program and meet our students, we'd be more than happy to have you come and attend a class to observe, certainly, or come and tour our campus at any time and engage with our students. They would love to see you. They would appreciate that involvement. Some of them do actually attend this meeting because it is top choice of the public meeting assignment that I personally assign in political science. So you regularly have students attending the Ottawa Police Services Board meeting as community members, whether you were aware of that or not. But anyway, in closing, I'll just say that you know, my the people that I work with, especially those faculty members who are or have been members of the police service, and indeed the graduates whom I know that go on to work in this capacity to serve their communities are such impressive people, the best people I know. And so it's I'm very grateful and proud to be associated with this program, and certainly with the college. I can answer any questions anybody may have.
Let's open it up. Member Curry.
Thank you so much for coming. I would encourage all the other board members for sure, if you have an opportunity to go over, if you haven't already, but to even sit in on the class. I went and talked about the difference between us, like city councilors, and why they are on the police services board, and the difference between our two roles. And, you know, I talked about a number of the other things. But as I was leaving that class, you talked about, Jill, the mental health course and information the students were about to get. And I was wondering, because you mentioned it briefly, they do learn a lot about their own mental health, right? And taking care of themselves and being prepared for what the job might demand of them. What about the understanding of some of the mental health challenges they may encounter in terms of residents of Ottawa, when they end up in any job, really, a first responder? Is that a part of it? I wanted to ask that then, but I ran out of time.
Yes, absolutely, no question. That comes into play originally in the psychology course in terms of some psychological disorders that are common and they may encounter. But as well, that is a big part of the mental health and law enforcement course. It satisfies those sort of two needs: one's own self-care and mental health, but then as well to try to prepare them as best as possible what they may encounter. And in addition, conflict management, de-escalation to a degree, dealing with challenging circumstances, appropriate response, use of force as well, etc., is all sort of intertwined in terms of being more and more aware of the symptoms and appropriate reactions to interacting with people with mental illness.
Great, thank you. And thank you for having them do assignments where they have to come and watch the board. I often find that people don't fully understand what the board does and what its role is. So I think that's very helpful. The only second question I have just quickly is, because we're getting a new Police Services Act, is that going to change a lot of what you're teaching? Are you already prepared and looking at that curriculum change?
Undoubtedly, the teachers who teach the courses that speak to that directly are on top of that. That would be factored in, certainly, I would think, to Canadian criminal justice, provincial offenses, certainly our police powers courses as well. So I don't believe that would catch any of our professors by surprise.
Great. Thank you so much for coming. I mean, I don't know if somebody else has any questions, but it is very helpful to see what type of training officers get. And this is a very helpful presentation to really have us understand that. So I really appreciate you taking the time to make the presentation and then come and speak to us.
Thanks very much, Councillor.
I see Chief Stubbs also has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair Fakarani. Thanks, Jill, for coming in and presenting the program. Certainly, we benefit a lot from your program in terms of recruiting some of your students, your graduating students in, and they've been great members. As well, as you mentioned, we do participate in your program at different levels with instructors and some of our serving members. But if certainly there's an opportunity to come for me to come into your class and speak to the group, more than happy to do that, and we should connect to arrange that. But warning you, I will be actively recruiting in whatever other message that that I might give. But
thank you so much, Chief. I will indeed get right on that.
Okay, thanks.
So Professor Reeves, I do have one question, and that's related to what the chief was saying about recruitment. So within sort of a graduating class, how many see like the police services as their career choice versus potentially other first responder type course
I would
placements? Or...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I would imagine I would guess about a third, I would say, see it as their choice. The number of students, of graduates rather, who are hired by police agencies would be less than that. But it's difficult for us to determine, actually. We do run a Facebook alumni page to try to connect with our graduates once they leave us. Sometimes they let us know. Oftentimes they are relying on us for references. And sometimes we're fortunate enough to be contacted for background checks, which we really appreciate. But it's hard to know because they they come to us from anywhere across the country, and then when they graduate, they go back and they apply to police agencies within their own areas in which they live. I wish I always knew. But I don't necessarily. It would be helpful if we had police agencies contact us and let us know if they have hired our graduates. That would be great. But at the same time, there is, especially right now, ample opportunity for hire in so many other areas of law enforcement, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that if students do want to work with border services, for example. So I think I would put it at about a third coming in. A lot of students since the pandemic we're finding are staying in school for a little while longer. So we have some articulation agreements with other post-secondary institutions, and they're continuing their education and gaining a bit more experience as well, working in the communities and so on, if policing is their goal. But that would be my guess.
If I can follow up, has there been a change in perception of the attractiveness of joining the police in the last decade from the students you hear and what they're saying? And if there is, are there any recommendations to improve or change?
That's a really interesting question, because that was the focus of our last conference that we held with my counterparts across Ontario, was what can we do to instill pride in program among our students and our graduates, so that when they are young and they're coming into the program and they're announcing to other family members and neighbors or whomever that they are joining police foundations, that's going to be met with the same level of excitement and encouragement as it would be any other program. And as well, those, of course, who are graduating and saying, oh, I'm applying to Edmonton, Ottawa, RCMP, et cetera, and that everybody, they feel good about it, and everybody's excited about it. So certainly we are, doing our best really to try to demonstrate to them, mostly through the community service hours that they do, but as well through everyday stories that our current faculty tell about the times, just like the story that the chief concluded his address with. Those stories where police have been helpful to the community, and we do our level best to try to insert as much of those as we can into our program and examples and so on. And as well, I actually run our social media for the program as well. And anytime I see any kind of posting of a good news story or accolades or expressions of gratitude in the community, I'm very quick to celebrate that. celebrate that with our students for sure. But they know, realistically as well, this is extremely tough work. There is a lot of public scrutiny. It would be helpful, I think, to us in our program and to the community at large if perhaps the police weren't as modest, maybe in the public sphere as they tend to be, and whatever could be done to get more of those stories out would be very, very beneficial to our students.
I see no further questions, so I want to take this opportunity to thank Professor Reeves and for coming to the Police Services Board to make a presentation. We really appreciate it, and I think we're all better informed because of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
And I will say that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this item for information. So is the item received?
Received.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Reeves. I forgot actually to record the chief's verbal report. So I'm going to go back just a bit and say the recommendation is that the Ottawa Police Service Board received the chief's verbal report for information. Was that item received?
Received.
Thank you. So the next item I've got on hold is 8.7, Ottawa Police Services Board Work Plan. I believe Member Curry and Member Carr each asked that this be held. We'll start with Member Carr.
Yeah, I really just have one question and one comment. There is flexibility with the work plan in case we make amendments to amend it at a future meeting, correct?
Krista, my understanding is yes, but Krista could explain further.
Absolutely. So the work plan is a guide for the board, but there will always be undoubtedly additional tasks added to the board's work plan. There are some pieces that have not been designated specific timelines, and that gives us some flexibility as well. So absolutely.
Okay, perfect. And then I just was wondering, it talks about the relaunch of the board's quarterly newsletter, and it'll be assigned to the new communications and stakeholder relations advisor. I would just suggest that maybe we have a look at what the best form of communication is, and as a board, and perhaps if we have greater social media presence, for example, a balance of that with a semi-annual newsletter, whatever the case may be. And my only other comment is that in the new piece of work that was added with respect to the strategic plan that is in the chart, that's semi-annual. In the report, it says biannual. And to me, there's a difference between semi-annual and biannual. I just rather see it referred to as semi-annual in all reports so that there's no confusion that we want to hear about it twice a year. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Carr. Krista, is that okay? Are you perfect? Okay. Member Curry.
Honestly, my main question is for the whole board, really, in that there are a lot of things on here. And when I was reading through each of them and envisioning what it would actually take to deal with each one of these, my overall question to all of us was, do we not think that this is kind of a lot?
So I would agree with you, Member Curry. But are there other board members that want to speak first, and then I can provide some comments? So I was just going to say that yes, it's ambitious, but many of the items there are things that just have to be done. They're automatic. On top of that, we have the new act coming into force. There's going to be a lot of work required for that. We have bargaining that's going to be happening later in the year, and we're going to have to be prepared for that. So there's a number of issues that we will have to get ready, which is why I think it was so important to include some resources to support the board. But yes, it is ambitious. A lot of them are many of the items are requirements we must do as part of our duties and functions. And part of it is just the external environment that I see police new act coming into force and other activities. But I would agree, yes, it's very ambitious.
Okay, I would just say, good, I'm glad you saw that too. Because I mean, I went through each one of them and I just thought, yeah, okay, this is sort of almost completed substantive work. We're going to hire somebody policy. You know, I sort of went through and thought, okay, that's fine. But just given that we have to deal with the new act, I guess what I would say is that if, I don't know if this is really Krista or the chief, that if we start to see that we're not going to be able to do some of these things, like sooner we know this, the better, I think, or that, you know, we need more resources or whatever. And my second comment would be any way, and I think you do this, but any way we can look at what other services are doing and, you know, benefit from the work they're already doing or they've already done. And yeah, maybe Krista has a comment, but I just want to flag that it seems to me this is a lot, given that we have the new act.
Krista.
So I can confirm that a meeting has already taken place with staff from other boards with respect to the new act. We have the summit at the end of February, and where possible, if there's opportunity to collaborate, we will absolutely do that to kind of reduce duplication across the province. For example, when there's new policy requirements where none of the boards have policies, it would be great to work together on something like that, have some consistency.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments? If not, it's recommended that the Ottawa Police Services Board approve the 2000. Sorry?
Chief had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Chief.
No problem, Chair. It was a late addition. You know, to Councillor Curry's comment about the workload, obviously the work for the board is immense there as well too. It is for us as well, and I think this month is the best, is a good example of the number of reports that were produced. It's a tremendous amount of work for the team to produce this. It does consume a lot of units to produce this. With this, with the new act coming in, that is a whole, as mentioned, it's a whole bunch of new work for us as well. And while it was anticipated, even to this moment, we're not 100% sure how much work this is all going to be because some of it still has yet to be released. So if there is any opportunities to review some of what we are producing, or if there is some delays on some of the reports that the board is comfortable with of not receiving or having submitted for a particular quarter, a particular half year, all of that would be appreciated to just to minimize a little bit of work that we have to do as we work on so many different projects. But I do thank Member Curry just for that comment and that acknowledgement that it is a lot for the board, it is a lot for the service as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We will take your advice under consideration, and maybe we'll have a dialogue with the executive director and members of the board just to see what are the real requirements that we have to produce. If no other comments, I'm going to recommend that the Ottawa Police Services Board approve the 2024 board work plan as endorsed by the Policy and Governance Committee. Is the item carried?
Carried.
Thank you. Next, I've got 8.9, updating justification for the Ottawa Police Service Special Constables District Special Constable Pilot Project. I know we've got Member Curry and Member Carr. I don't know who put their hand up first, but I think it might be helpful to have an introduction, a quick introduction to this by the Chief.
Well, thank you, Chair Faccarani. Yeah, so this is an interesting pilot that we are hoping to launch for a number of reasons. But you know, as the report got published last week, I did see some reporting in the media that wasn't as accurate, or maybe some confusion versus an accuracy of what this is supposed to do. Obviously, our frontline officers are very busy, and they have a call volume, and our response times, we want to see that increase or decrease. We want to see our service delivery increase to the community, and we do see ourselves in a number of areas where there is a drain on time. And two of those areas, one is mental health calls. And one thing I want to be very clear on, that as I saw some commentary in the public, we are not proposing to send special constables to the calls to a residence, for example, or to a location in the public to determine whether a person should be apprehended under the Mental Health Act and brought to a hospital. This is strictly the special constables going to the various hospitals where we've apprehended somebody, and as we all know, the emergency rooms are very busy. We sit there for hours waiting to see a physician. So instead of having 2, 3, 4, 5 sworn police officers at a particular hospital, we would still have 1 or 2, depending on how many clients were there, but we would have special constables that would attend the hospital, which would free up these sworn members to then return to the road and to go to continue responding to calls for service. A very, very important point. Similarly, with our traffic work, we'll have different roads that we need to close. Could be for a protest, could be a crime scene, could be an accident for a number of hours. Instead of having a sworn member at these locations for a number of hours, we can move on and have our sworn members again return to the road to respond to calls. So we're looking for efficiencies in terms of freeing up time. On a financial side, the salary difference between a special constable and a sworn member, there is some savings there, but this is not. It's not a windfall for us. This is not the major reason for this pilot. It's strictly to get our members back on the road quicker. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to go with Member Carr and then Member Curry.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the clarification, Chief. Just a note that I had the opportunity to be in the emergency at the General one night in recent months, and there were 4 different officers there with different groups of people during the night. So certainly if you have a night like that, the special constables will be fully deployed. And that's only one of the 4 hospitals we have. My question is with respect to, we previously discussed resource allocation, and I believe the minimum number for a platoon is 42 or are these special constables included in those minimum numbers for platoon, or is this in extra? Sorry, you're on mute. Well,
It's been a while since I've done that. It's a new year. No, this would be in addition to the 42.
okay, it would be in addition. And where are these? So where are these special constables? You're deploying them from, they're within the Ottawa Police Services already. What are they not going to be doing when they take over this work?
Right. So right now, and it is a pilot. So if we do run into where we need to roll out this pilot across the service, then it would be we would have to hire more special constables. Right now, they do 3 primary functions. They're in our cell block and they help with our prisoners and the cell block here on Elgin Street. They're in the courthouse and they do document service. So those are the 3 functions that they perform. If we add permanently the mental health and or the traffic, then that would require, if we're going to go through all the platoons, that would require more special constables to be hired.
Okay, so right now in the Ottawa Police Services, you don't really have special constables who are out in the public, such as we see with the special constables with Carleton University or with OC Transpo. They're not out there in the public realm. Like the special constables at the courthouse, do they have like a special car that says special constable or anything like that?
Well, I mean, they are in the public. They're interacting with the public at the courthouse, and of course, our document service folks, they go to residences to serve a summons, a subpoena, etc. So there is some of that, but in terms of walking around downtown, doing patrols in the market and whatnot, that's not something that they don't interact with the public in that regard.
Okay, I just was wondering if we've got them increasingly deployed at the hospitals and whatever else, if there's any risk to people thinking that they're an OPS officer with the whole range of duties. But I imagine that'll be covered as part of the pilot, any sort of risk assessment to do with that.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Look forward to hearing next steps on that.
Member Curry.
Thank you. I really was happy to read about this report. I was able to speak to someone at a police association event who was indicating to me that that this was a good idea. And so I was hoping that it was coming forward. And so here it is. The other thought, though, that this, I think it was a retired officer was saying to me, is that hospitals have security officers there, like they have their own security staff. And so one of his thoughts was, and maybe this will be later in the pilot, would there ever be special constables that would stay on as security staff? I mean, to the point that Councillor or Member Carr was talking about, like if they were having then to drive there, I mean, I know that's just a time thing, and then the officer would wait until they were there and then one of the officers could leave. But would it ever be that they would be permanently deployed there, given the number of times police are in a merge? I mean, I just wonder, I'm sure that part of this pilot will be, you look at the stats, we already know how often police officers are sitting in a merge for how many hours at different, I know different hospitals have different times, because I know different hospitals are seen more favorably, and you can check out to see the wait time. But, there's other programs, and I don't want to get into teaching, but we did the same thing with occasional teachers. So we made them permanent in the school, knowing that they would be needed anyway, every single day. So is that all something that will be tracked and monitored through this pilot? That's my first question, because would it ever evolve into being potentially hospital security becoming that special constable?
Yeah, thank you, Member Curry. I think, when like the security guards that are there and there for, to provide security for the whole hospital versus just that, segment that we're addressing with this pilot. If the volume is enough to where a special constable could be permanently deployed there, that could be a development. Personally, like I would like to see, one area that we go to drop, to go to see physicians when we do apprehend a client versus the 4 hospitals. I believe back in the day, the Royal Ottawa had that, that structure where we would just always go there. And then say in that model, to have a special constable or 2 that would permanently be there, because that's where it's all going to be. That would be, for me, the ideal model, instead of the 4 hospitals that we have to spread ourselves out around the city. But it's a possibility, and different hospitals have different sort of standard operating procedures with their security guards. That some are hands-on, some are not hands-on. So to have a location that is very consistent that we can work with, I would love that.
Yeah, no, I agree, Chief. I mean, the idea of having an emergency department or a department at the Royal Ottawa seems to me to be a really good answer. But however, that's a bigger thing. For now, I was really glad to see this. The second question I have is just at the end of the report, it indicates that other police services are doing this, and the Solicitor General would have to be asked if we could do it, but we don't anticipate any problem. Like if the Solicitor General is aware that we might try this, that we are going to try this, and then we would present our data, make the case, and we don't anticipate there being any issue, given that we have a new act.
Right. That, I asked the same questions, Member Curry, to my team, exactly that. So maybe I'll just pass this over. I'm not sure if I should go to Deputy Bell or Burnett. But that's my understanding, is that this will be, because other agencies are following this practice. This isn't, or a similar practice, that it won't be an issue once the board approves us to go forward with this. Steve has his mute off.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, no, there won't be an issue. The board will approve or not, will approve the extension of those powers, and then that gets submitted to the Solicitor General. So no, there won't be any issues from that part.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I really look forward to finding out how this goes.
Thank you, Member Curry. The one question I have, Chief, is sort of reporting back to the board on the pilot's results. So I don't know if we can just put that on the radar, or would it be about a year from now, or 18 months from now? But I think it should be, or before you go to the Solicitor General, at a certain milestone. I think it'd be appreciated by the board if you come back and provide results on how this is going.
Right. No, certainly we will. Deputy Burnett, I'll just go to you on that. By the time we get this up and running, we run it for 6 months, and then give us some time to compile the data and provide a report to the board. What would be your estimate timeline on that?
Yeah, thank you. I think the initial thoughts were that we would run the pilot for about 6 months. Give us some time to collate that information and report back to you. The plan was always to report back to the board. So that is baked into the pilot project itself. So if after maybe a month or two after that 6 month trial period, we can certainly get some information back to the board.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments from board members? If not, I'm going to recommend that the Ottawa Police Services Board approve the attached justification comprising of additional special constable authorities for the purpose of implementing the district special constable pilot program. The additional authorities include the following sections of the Highway Traffic Act: Section 134, bracket 1, authority to direct; Section 134, bracket 2, authority to close a highway; Section 134.1, bracket 1, authority to remove vehicles from a highway. The district special constables will also be provided duties requiring Mental Health Act powers previously contained within the justification. These duties are related to transporting and maintaining custody of persons apprehended under the Mental Health Act, taken to hospital or another medical facility. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Thank you. 8.10, Community Safety and Policing Act. This is the act we've talked about. And I think this was held by, was it Member Curry? Okay.
Yeah, I think it wasn't just me, but I want to ask on page 4, this RACI matrix, who in the end determines who is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed?
So, Chief, could I turn it to someone from you or your team? To you or your team?
Sure. I just want to make sure, Member Curry, could you just repeat your question just a bit for me?
Sure. In the report on page 4, I think it is, it just talks about this RACI matrix that will be used, right?
Right. Yes.
And so it says, the Inspectorate of Policing is advocating for a project management approach. As such, the responsible, accountable, consulted, informed matrix will be used to define key roles and responsibilities. So, but who determines who is in that matrix as responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed?
Okay, got it. Yeah, so at the end of the day, what that RACI format is, it's a spreadsheet or a dashboard that will allow us to keep track of all the different initiatives within the proposed legislation that we have to work on. And it'll be, for example, there's one there. Every car has to have a halogen tool or a breaching tool. So say for that one, the deputy will be a Burnett. There'll be a superintendent in charge of working on that with fleet. And procurement to make sure that we the people that will be responsible to deliver on that task. It'll just be laid out in the spreadsheet, and we'll have timelines attached to it.
Okay, and so but basically some of that will be just the regulations you already know who has to be responsible and who has to be consulted. It's not something you just determine on a case by case basis. It's something that we will somewhat be told.
Right. Yeah, we'll show you that spreadsheet. I think is our intent, just to show you where we're at with the different initiatives. I will say this, that some of the initiatives, it's very obvious where the owner will be and who that is. Others, though, have many tentacles throughout the organization. It touches a little bit here and a little bit there, so it's not as obvious of who should be the owner. So we have some thought to determine who needs to do that work.
Okay, thank you very much.
Member Carr.
Hi, Chair. I just have a quick question. I know the chief had mentioned, I believe in his opening remarks, about cost implications. Has there been any costing done out preliminary on the cost of these changes to the police services? Like, will it put you in a pressure situation?
So the first answer is no. We do not have a definite number of what the implications will be because we're still learning. For example, the training regulations have yet to be issued, and training can be very expensive if we have mandatory training for every sworn member plus civilian or whatever combination, just as one example. So the answer is no, but we do know this is going to cost, and it will be a challenge and will put a pressure on our budget. There is no doubt, but we are working as quick as we can to come up with an estimate, which I think will still be, to be quite frank, a number of weeks away.
Okay, thank you. Look forward to hearing updates on that.
And sorry, I was just going to add, Steve, I don't know if you have anything to add just on the budget side of the house on that, or if I covered what needed to be said there.
No, you did, and I think there's two portions to it. One is the implementation costs, because we have a project team around that. We're going to need to get some external resources in to help support this work. So there's that cost, and then there's just the investment cost and the changes we have. So it's definitely not going to be free. And we're actively working to try and track it so that we can identify what, if any, pressures it'll create on our budget, and what, if anything, we should be potentially going to have discussions with the province around how we appropriately fund it moving ahead.
Good. Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this item for information. Is this item received?
Received.
8.12, the annual use of force report 2022. It was held. I don't know, Chief, if you want to say anything, opening words to this report, or you want to go straight to questions.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair Pakarani. You know, obviously the use of force report comes with a lot of interest in the community, and I think to the board and to our membership as well too. But thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. I read the report a couple times just to make sure I fully understood what it all said. And a few years ago, the OPS made a commitment of increasing our transparency as it relates to our use of force reporting, and we're seeing that now with more detailed data that we are producing. And we took a big step in the last year on the quality of our data. You see this in this report, as well as the data portal that is available to the public now. So that's something that we made a commitment to, that I think we're delivering on in terms of more data, so people understand this very sensitive topic in the policing industry when it comes to use of force. But also, increasing the data is one thing. We also see some numbers that are concerning, but we want to work with the affected communities on these numbers that are in the report, and we're committed to that as well too. And in 2024, we have what I think is a very progressive initiative, working with the Community Equity Council to launch our community review panels for use of force. And this is similar to what we already do with sexual assaults and intimate partner violence files, where SMEs, the people that work in that industry in the community, they look at our files and give us feedback on sexual assault investigations and intimate partner investigations. So this is kind of similar to what we're getting going with the Community Equity Council. So I think that's a real positive step, and that will launch in 2024. One thing that we have to remember, the nature of our work will always require some use of force incidents throughout the year. But we are committed to de-escalation, and in our use of force statistics, we want them as low as possible and as equitable as possible as well too. And there are some positive trends in this year's report. First and foremost, I think we have to acknowledge that 99.9% of our files are resolved with no force. And again, knowing the nature of our work and the number of high-risk calls that we do attend, and that is increasing, it's clear to me that our members are using their de-escalation training, to achieve this number, this high. They have to be, because they go to so much high-risk calls. Of the 245 incidents that are captured as a use of force incident, only 41% are direct use of force. So that's about 100 incidents where, again, direct action was used against an individual. So the remaining 59% of the incidents, that's where a weapon was either displayed or pointed at an individual, but not deployed. Now, the numbers, and of course the media is reporting on this, and I've spoken to them, associated to our Black and Middle Eastern population, that is concerning. They are trending down, every year from 2020 when we first reported on this. So that is good. But I certainly look forward to working with the affected communities to better understand how we can do better. We do have a number of sort of initiatives that we have launched. We've completed our bias-free policing, and every year there's a part of that in our day-long use of force program that we have. The anti-Black racism program that we had in the last year is continuing. Of course, de-escalation training, as I referenced. We are hiring a resource that is going to continue to develop our race data strategy. I mentioned our Community Equity Council Use of Force Advisory Panel. And of course, our Drive To strategy has many initiatives that involve engaging the public as well as our diverse communities. So maybe Chair Pakarani, I'll leave my comments at that. And of course, if there are any questions, please.
I see Member Curry has her hand up, and then Member Carr.
Okay, so thank you very much for this report. Deputy Chief Burnett, I was so impressed with this report, like the level of detail and the digging down to figure out what was going on there with the statistics. I was very impressed with this report, and I think it demonstrates that we're not afraid to look at the data and say, what's going on. But I have to highlight, I know, Chief, you already said this, but the pure stat that 99.9% of the calls required no force. I mean, that statistic is not something the media is talking about. It's so frustrating to me that, that there's zero mention of that, yet 99.9% of all the calls required no force. So, we're dealing with such a small fraction of a percent here. And not to say that we shouldn't be, we absolutely should be, but you still have to make sure the other part of that is recognized. So anyway, thank you for saying that. I was going to say it, and I've said it, and you've said it. At least two people have said it. So one of the things I was going to say is that, your point about the display, and, I read in this report here that on top of page 5, that the ministry doesn't even require that we report if it's just the display of a CEW. And so later on, it says from 2023 onward, the ministry report will include both the display and deployment of CEWs. So is that the report to the ministry that we will write will include it, or the ministry is now going to ask for just the display? I just want to make sure I was clear on that, because I think it's great that we are recording when it's just a display when we didn't even really have to.
Right. That's my understanding as well, Member Curry. So our numbers, if some police agencies aren't reporting on that display right now, then their numbers are going to increase, I guess, going forward, where ours it's already embedded in it. So there shouldn't be much of a ripple when that change is mandatory.
Great. I'm really glad to see that. The other thing I was going to say was that when there's, the one page on page 6, where 24 incidents where OPS members use their weapons on an animal, is that also required by the ministry? I know that they have to shoot deer occasionally, but that is also required by the ministry?
Is that required by the ministry, Paul, or anybody? Does anybody know? I think maybe it is. And,
yes, yeah, it's required. Any use or anytime you display or discharge your firearm, you have to report to the ministry, and those dispatching of animals would be using a firearm.
Okay, I mean, I see other questions coming. I just want to ask a couple more, or at least one more. On page 11, where it says we're under the chart at the very bottom, other R1K9 pepper ball CS vapor distraction device is up 800%. Is that convoy related? It's 2022.
Paul, maybe I'll go to you if you don't mind on that. Generally, those types of weapons are used often by our tactical team. So I'll just, Paul, over to you for maybe a comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely, Chief. Yeah, that the use of those particular weapons are really limited to our specialty units. And so as a use of force, that is often exercised as opposed to lethal force. So using less than lethal sometimes is able to resolve the situation in some of the dynamic sort of environments that they're working in. So that's usually where that is. The pepper ball is a new sort of use of force item that we've just brought into our arsenal, let's say over the last year or two. So the numbers there could be slightly skewed.
And I do believe that some of those techniques were used during convoy as well too, which I think would account for that rise. Correct? I'm getting a head nod there from Steve. Yeah.
Okay, and I think I have a couple other I have to search for, but I'll let the other members ask some questions.
So we'll go to member Carr and then member Sutcliffe.
Hi, thanks. I will admit that usually I find the reports very easy to read, but I think it was because of all the differing numbers, 330 use of force, but 270 incidences. I got a little bit lost in some of the details because then we reported that 308 of those had multiple reasons. So I just wanted to confirm that in the statistics that are provided, for example, even in the summary, when it talks about mental health making up 22% and weapons related being 14, there could be overlaps between those, right? Like you report on the percentages, all of the reasons and not all of the cases the UFR, but the 600 various reasons for the 200 and something incidences, right?
Right. Yes. And yeah. And don't feel bad about having to, if it's a bit confusing. I had to read it a couple times myself just to really read it once and then let it soak in the second time. It's very well, the team member who put that together, I think she did a great job. It's very complex to sort of make sense of it, but I understand some clarity issues if you're not involved in the industry a lot either.
Yeah, no, I did have to read it twice and do some figuring out of stats myself. Okay. And then I just had one tiny question, but if I can't find it, we might be good just to go to the next person. Obviously, there was some good news ahead, but yeah, still concerned about the overrepresentation of some of the populations. I'll get back in line if I can find my other question, but it likely was answered. Thank you.
So member Sutcliffe.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So Chief Stubbs or anybody else on the team, I'm just wondering if you can comment on the range of factors that would contribute to these statistics either going up or down from one year to the next, because obviously some of the factors are beyond your control. And for example, I'm going to use a hypothetical scenario here, but you could have 1 year, in theory, and next year you could have it go down to 99.8% of the time that you don't have to use force. And that could be perceived as the police are using more force because of policing issues, when in fact it could be the nature of the calls that you're responding to. And then the following year, it could go back up to 99.9, and people could interpret that as the police being more effective in their policing, when in fact it's just there's been a significant drop in the kinds of calls that would require force. So I'm just using that as one example, and the same could be said of the equity-based statistics as well, that there could be fluctuations that don't tell the whole story. So I'm just wondering if you can comment on that, because I think I see these as telling a story, but not necessarily telling the whole story. And they're statistics, they're helpful. We want to see trends in a certain direction, but I think we also need to acknowledge the wide range of factors that would contribute to how the numbers might change.
Thank you, Member Sutcliffe. And very, it's so true. A use of force incident is so complex in terms of what goes into that situation. And, in a hypothetical situation, if someone has a mental health issue that is also consumed some illicit drugs, that has a weapon, who also lost a close family member, in a recent death, or there's so much that goes on, and then the responding member, what their capability is. It one member or is it four? And is that person 6'4", 220 pounds, or 5 foot, whatever? Is a youth? Is an adult? Is a senior? There's so much that one has to consider. Is it raining out? Is it dark? Is it light? It's endless to say, and that's why it's so complex and so laborious to properly assess each event to say, was that a proper application of force or wasn't it? So then as the numbers fluctuate, it can account, and sometimes we could, and I think that's a great observation. If it's 99.8, where we've drastically dropped off, and there could be a reason for that. And if something like that does happen, we may be able to dig down into the data, because our data is getting a lot better. We're maturing our data a lot more. And even next year, and maybe more to Member Carr's comments about having to read it a few times, we're going to have a dashboard next year that is going to make things, I think, a bit more visual, a bit more optical, and it'll be easier to consume for people. So I did want to mention that, Member Carr. But it is a very complex industry when it comes to this use of force and assessing numbers and data. Deputy Burnett, did you have anything? Yeah, I know he is a use of force expert. He teaches as well too, and he brings a lot to the table on this topic. So I just want to give him an opportunity to maybe respond to that question as well.
Yeah, I think you hit it out of the park there in terms of an officer bringing all their skills to the table. Like you mentioned, a statured officer will deal with situations quite differently than a larger officer, and based on their skills and what's being presented. So I think all of those things that you mentioned really do indicate how our officers deal with that, and whether the perceived threat requires that show of force, which sometimes can really calm down the situation. For example, if you're using your CEW, and the fact that you just turn it on will get a reaction from the person and have them comply. And that's really what we want to do, is we want that person to de-escalate. And if you can't do that with tactical communications, articulation, de-escalation, visual, sometimes you may have to bring that up to a visual show of force, and that takes it right down, and you can deal with the situation.
So I think that's great. Your answers are very helpful, and I think you're looking at it as individual situations, but I'm also looking at just the sum total. There could be a year where the number of times the Ottawa Police Service uses force goes up over the previous year, and that could be an indicator of the police using force too often, or it could be an indicator of the kinds of calls you've gone on that require the use of force more often. So it's not the only indicator. I think people interpret this data as sort of an assessment of the police service's response, as though the kinds of calls that you go on are a constant from one year to the next, but they're not. And so the statistics are a reflection both of the events that you're encountering and also your reaction to those events. They're not just a reflection of your reaction to those events. That was kind of what I was trying to underscore here.
Right.
Thank you.
No, for sure. Thank you. And, we do have one data set there that talks about rates of use of force per 1,000 calls. If you saw that in the report, and that number since 2020 in the 3 years has now twice decreased per 1,000 calls. So that's a bit of an indicator, because our call volume is going up, our population's going up. So the overall number of use of force incidents will likely increase. That math kind of tells you that a little bit, but that rate per 1,000 is an interesting one to look at as well too. But again, those 1,000 calls, if we had one weapons call in that 1,000, or we had 10 in that sample size of 1,000, may have a different answer.
I see Member Curry has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make another comment, kind of a question, I guess. On page 101 or 15 in this report, there's a chart at the top that says the top 5 occurrences for each group, for overall white subjects, black subjects, and other racialized subjects. And if you look at the three first boxes there, the top one's Mental Health Act, and then the next one is weapons. And then again, going back, the next one is weapons. So kind of have like a common Mental Health Act, weapons, as the top ones. Even in the bottom quadrant there, Mental Health Act is second. I guess what I would like to say here is, so this is where there was force used. And this was why. And it says earlier in the report, this is to effect an arrest, and this is usually when force is used, right? But going back to the 99.9% of the time, I think you want to look at the data, maybe you are, it's just not in this report, but you want to look at the data of the 99.9% of the calls where there was no force used, but yet would they have ever have been Mental Health Act or weapons? And no force was used? You see what I'm getting at?
Right. No, for sure. Member Curry, that you could have a call where it's a weapon. Somebody has a knife in their hand, and we pull up, we get out of the car, and they throw the knife away in a safe distance, and they put their hands up, and we just arrest them. And there's no use of force, and that's a weapons call.
Yeah, so I'm just sort of saying, and you have lots of those would be mental health, you know, where there was all of your de-escalation, right? So I just think that data needs to be juxtaposed with this data, and then so that it sort of tells a full picture as well, you know? That's the problem with a report that's solely on this. But I mean, obviously it's helpful. We have to have it. I'm just saying there's two sides to this, you know?
Right. And the tricky part there is that when there's use of force deployed, we're obligated to fill out a use of force report, which then produces all this. When it's not applied, we're not obligated to fill out a report. So it's harder to harvest what really occurred there. And that, to be quite frank, is where we have so much de-escalation, and our members take so much time to talk and to talk people down. And I see it in briefing notes all the time. 8 hours later, the person agreed to come out of the barricaded home, and nobody was injured and no force was used. And I see that hours later. That it's not captured statistically because we're just not required to. I'd love to, but it would be a lot of work to capture all that. Yeah.
Member Carr. Sorry, unless Member Curry still has any follow-ups. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, yes, absolutely, it's difficult to capture that. I just wonder if there isn't some other important information there, you know, because you have this information, great. You know, there's lots you can do with this. I can see guns and gangs, you know, might want to look really closely at this data. It's just that there's a lot of other data too that would be very important. Anyways, I'm done. Thank you so much for a great report.
I agree.
Member Carr.
Yeah, first comment, and then I'll have a question that I couldn't remember before. Comment, I would completely support a dashboard that would be a bit more easier to see the data, especially since there's such a public want for consumption of this information. My question is, why is the data based on 2022 and not 2023 for this particular report? Why is it a year for us to get that data?
Right. So I am going to pat in John Steinbach. Are you on the line? Maybe he needs to. Yeah, he'll be online, but I think he needs to get promoted to a panelist. We asked this question. We actually released a lot of this data in June, and then in order to get the report done, it took when it did. But we had a discussion about that this morning, and we are going to aim to have the data available and the report all at the same time. I think around mid-year is the goal for 2023's data in 24 here.
Okay, excellent. Well, so we'll sort of see, instead of a 6 month or instead of a 12-month reporting lag, we'll sort of see a 6 month after the year end. Okay, that might have been said previously and I missed it, but thank you.
Okay.
I saw John has just come on, and I know Deputy Chief Bell also may want to comment. So I leave it to you. Who goes first?
Yeah, so I only caught a piece of the chief's answer because when they were transferring me in, but I can tell you that later we're currently working with the York University research team to finalize that report along with the traffic stop rate data report, and we're looking at a March-April timeline to release that data. So there's a lot of work going on there right now on that, and including mapping and dashboarding, etc.
Deputy Chief Bell, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm good. John answered it just before, because he came in. I was going to provide that information.
Okay. Anything further, Member Carr?
I'm done for now. Thank you.
Okay, so I just have a couple of points. So one was getting to a comment that you made, Chief, which was sort of digging deeper. And I think it's really important when you have such good data to take sort of your quantitative data and go to a qualitative analysis when required. So when your quantitative data is showing certain trends, and then going to the qualitative areas to actually look at the reports, et cetera, to see what's behind them. And that might even go to what Member Sutcliffe was saying is, what is the story? What is the reasons where certain trends are happening and factors that might make one year different than another year. So that was one point. The other point I want to make is the data is still an issue for communities. And when we did our strategic plan, community trust is a big part of moving forward and an important aspect of it. So I think we should not lose sight of that it's still really important with various communities that we don't lose sight of what the numbers are showing when we're dealing with them and building that relationship and further explanations, further training within the service if required. All of the things that the Drive to strategy is also showing. The last thing I wanted to ask is the community review panel. I know you said you want to establish it in 2024. You want to establish it this year. I'd prefer a more ambitious target if you could give us, because this has been. I think we've been told before that this is coming. A community review panel is coming. I know there's some work happening in the background for terms of reference, etc. But I think it would be really helpful, if not at this meeting, maybe the next meeting, where in your report you could say that this is the plan for the recruitment for this community review panel. And these are the dates, because I think that'll also give confidence to the various communities that this is happening.
Well, thank you, Chair Fakrani. On that particular point, again, we actually discussed that this morning as well, too. And at the last Community Equity Council meeting, I couldn't make, and they discussed it. Deputy Burnett is a co-chair of the CEC. And I think in terms of the process, Paul, and we discussed it briefly today, the sort of call out is going to go out the next couple months. And then the screening and the training of those of the community members has to occur, because that is a significant thing that has to occur. And then our hope of them actually reviewing, they'll review some files as part of their training, of course. But I think in earnest, we're hoping mid-year would be a goal for us. But there's some dynamics in there. Did you want to review any of that in terms of making sure those numbers are accurate? What I just said.
I think that's the plan. I mean, obviously, it's a new year. We're a little slow in our committees, but our last meeting we did commit to striking that up and really getting that rolling.
Okay, thank you. I think it'd be very important. It's really important to see the community review panel up and running, because it's a long. I think it's a standing commitment that the service has made. So I think it's really important. I have no additional questions or comments. If I'm seeing no other board members with comments, I'm going to read in the recommendation that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this item for information. Is the item received, the annual use of force report 2022?
Received.
Thank you. The next item that I have on hold is 8.17, the OPSB CR-6 Public Consultation Policy Annual Report. And I believe this was Member Carr.
Yep, it was me. And very quickly, I just had two questions. With respect to the findings of the community consultation, there was a comment that in the community meetings of chief of police, that people were proposing that consideration be given to reviewing the effectiveness of paid duty outside of those required by legislation. Can you just give me a refresher on what paid duty would be outside of those required by legislation? Would that be like at Blues Fest, that sort of thing, where it's not under the Highway Traffic Act?
Yeah, thanks, Member Carr. Yes, exactly that. There's a lot of things that we do in the community, Santa Claus parades, Ottawa senators, just the endless events that we do, but the legislated ones under the HTA is the one that is the primary driver of that differentiation.
Okay, then my second question, which I was going to ask with respect to the accessibility report, which I still have a question under that. Sorry, Chair Fakarani, was I noticed that there wasn't any consultation taken with the accessibility community at all with respect to any of their needs. When you undertake consultations with community groups, do you offer for people with accessibility needs, whether that be for people with disabilities or interpretation or any of that? Is there an attempt to ensure that that's being considered in these community consultations?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if it's a known coming in, I don't think when we go to meetings that we have everything covered with the possibilities that we might encounter at a particular meeting unless we know of it in advance. So I can't speak too articulate to that answer. I know Superintendent Dave Zacharias is on our line. He's the author of that report. If he knows a bit better, he'd have to get promoted, I think, by Rhonda into the meeting.
It's not something I need an answer on today, but I might ask a question under accessibility as well, if we can follow up later. And then I just have one last question. You mentioned that you meet with city councilors in each ward. I know I had my ward councillor hat on when I met with you. You've met with all 24 councillors then?
No, one-on-one in their wards, I haven't met with all of them, but close. One or two, I think I have not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Carr. I just have one comment, and the comment is just looking forward to seeing the revised community engagement strategy for summer of 2024. I noted that you guys are working on that, so that's the only comment I have on this document. If there's no other questions from board members, then I will read in the recommendation that the Ottawa Police Services Board receive this item for information. Is the item received?
Received.
Thank you. 8.18 is also held, and I think this was Vice Chair Carr.
Yes, sorry, that is the accessibility piece?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think I wanted to I asked a question on the last one, and then I just wondered if you have anything in your accessibility policy about an accessible fleet, if that's ever a consideration, if you ever need to have vehicles with accessibility needs at all.
Sorry, could you repeat that? Any link? Did you say a link to?
Most of the updates that are provided on updates on your implementation of accessibility policy have to do with, I guess, the commitments made, which are largely communications based and internal to the employees. I don't think your present accessibility plan contemplates anything to do with fleet. I don't think there was any commitments to upgrade to fleet, like vehicles. And I wondered if that is ever something that's come up with respect to fleet not being accessible. For example, if you ever apprehended someone and you need an accessible car. I was just asking about that.
Okay. I'm not aware of that, Member Carr. I see Deputy Bell has his mute off. I'll go to Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. So thanks for the question. What I can tell you is we address that on a case-by-case basis. There has been situations where, mostly related to stature, somebody larger needed a bigger vehicle, somebody smaller needed a smaller vehicle. So we do address that on a case-by-case basis. If there was any sort of accommodation that was needed to help support a member in their fleet vehicle, we would provide that and have in the past. We don't do it as part of this reporting because we deal with it as a medical accommodation and go through that process, levers that process.
Okay, thank you. No more questions, but thank you for that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Carr. Any other, Member Curry.
Yeah, Superintendent Zacharias got on the call here. I was wondering, was there not a question for him?
There was a question in respect to the last document, I believe, that we were reviewing, Chief Stubbs.
Yeah, I think we covered it. I don't remember what that is. Too many issues.
That's what
around.
I thought too. Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
we covered it too.
Okay,
Right.
just want to make sure.
I will say there, just Superintendent Zacharias, in terms of accessibility during consultations, in terms of when we're meeting with people, did you want to make a quick comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Chief. I just want to confirm that, in fact, we do, if there is a certain request from a community member in terms of they have special needs to when they're attending an event or engaging with us, we ensure that we accommodate their special needs. For example, for Human Rights Learning Forum, there was a couple of special requests that was made. So we ensured that we got them the proper equipment and, so they had access, smooth access to participate in the session.
Vice Chair Carr.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually what triggered me wanting to ask the question, was imagining who some of the audience may have been at the Human Rights Learning Forum and wondering how those things were addressed. So thank you very much for that update.
You're welcome.
If there are no further questions on 8.18, I will read in the recommendation. Okay, that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this item for information.
Received.
Thank you. The next held item is 8.24, response to inquiry I-2301, roles and responsibilities regarding business plan development. And
yeah, it was me that held it because it was my inquiry after. Oh, sorry.
Yes, that's right. Sorry.
I didn't wait to be called on. Sorry.
Sorry, Vice Chair Carr. No, go ahead, please.
I didn't wait to be called on. I may have a follow-up question. I would look, just with respect to, I just wanted it to be confirmed, and I'll confirm verbally, that no approval is required by council members with respect to the business plan, because it is a board document and there's consultation with city council only, correct? Yeah, so that I will give this, I will discuss it with my colleagues who asked, and thank you very much for putting it together. I know it was a busy time the last few months.
Okay. There's no other questions. I'll read in the recommendation that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this item for information.
Received.
Thank you. And that gets us to our last letters of commendation. So, Chief, there's, I know you've already said one, but does Deputy Chief Burnett want to say anything on this item?
Sure, absolutely. As you've all seen, there's not quite that many commendations in our folders, but we did receive a recent letter, and it was addressed to Chief Stubbs, and it's dated December 27th. Chief Stubbs, sir, the purpose of this letter is to thank the Ottawa Police Service, and in particular, two very kind officers who generously helped me deliver groceries and a Christmas gift to my niece in an Ottawa housing facility in Vanier. On December 22nd at about 12:20 p.m., Officer Silva and his partner volunteered their assistance. I had bought too many heavy articles, plus the gifts to carry to the building. Navigate upstairs and find her apartment. I'm a 90-year-old senior using a cane for balance. My niece uses a walker. That facility has not had a working elevator for several months. As a result, she is confined to her small apartment. She suffers from several physical, emotional, and social issues. The officers were very kind and understanding. They facilitated my entry and assisted in finding her apartment. Through you, sir, I would like to thank the Ottawa Police Service for exemplary support and particularly reiterate my most sincere appreciation to those two officers for their kindness and assistance. My husband's surname was Da Salva. Sincerely, Marie A. Loyer. Another two that we received was dated the 18th of December. I'm a Jewish woman living in Ottawa. I wanted to thank the OPS for their hard work keeping our community safe right now. It has been a terrifying time for our community. Thank you so much for protecting our institutions and for your recent work to arrest a young person who was planning a bomb attack on the Ottawa Jewish community. I will be forever grateful for your hard work and protection. And then the last one. Hi there. What a pleasure to have received your service at the right time. Yesterday, I fell on the sidewalk on Metcalf Street near Nepean at around 1 p.m. A white van full of police officers took the time to stop. Two of them came to my rescue quickly, checking on my condition after hitting my head and helped me to my feet. I followed their recommendation to put ice on my cheek. Still reeling from the fall in their presence, I didn't take the time to thank them. From the bottom of my heart, I sincerely thank them for their professionalism and their calm and reassuring approach. That about sums it up.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Burnett. I'm going to just read in the recommendation that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information.
Received.
Thank you. Any other business? Item 9 on our agenda. Do any board members have any other business to raise? Hearing none, this concludes our public meeting. Our next meeting will be held on February 26th. Can I please have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you, Member Curry. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.